Hello and good evening. I am Desrine McFarlane, your host, and I want to thank you so much for joining us for the third edition of Conversations Live. This evening, we are going to be focusing on the theme When Purpose Meets Passion. I am excited to welcome each of you who have taken time out to be with us this afternoon. In studio with me, I have a very special guest, a Caribbean professional, and I feel like we are kin sisters. Just by engaging with her as part of this process, I was inspired, and I am certain that her story is also going to inspire you. Because, of course, Conversations Live is that program where ordinary people share their extraordinary stories, stories that inspire us, stories that help us to be resilient and persistent, stories about education and leadership. So we thank you so much for being here. Now, please remember that in the final 15 minutes of this program, we will be giving you the opportunity to ask your questions, and I'm sure Sasha will just be excited to answer your questions. So please do not be afraid. Now, we are in studio and we are live, but we can also see your comments. So as Sasha speaks, it is important for her to have your feedback. I want to encourage you to be a part of this program. Do not just watch, but encourage us as we go along. Now, as you know, on this program, our guests usually introduce themselves. So at this time, I'm going to welcome Sasha. Hi, Sasha. Welcome.
Hi, Desrine. It's so lovely to be with you today. I am beyond excited to be part of conversations. Just looking at the intro has been inspiring for me because it has been a journey. It has been a tough journey, but I am here to share my story. I am here to share my insights. I am here to give encouragement and inspiration to everybody who's watching. I know that we have a lot of people, a lot of my friends, a lot of my family have logged on to support me. So I just want to say hi to everyone and continue to engage. I'm really excited for the last 15 minutes so that I can engage with you guys and have the question answer segment.
Excellent. So thank you so much for consenting to talk with us this afternoon. And this program is also sponsored by Legacy Human Resource Management, where we deliver human resource services your way. So my first question to Sasha, it's not really a question, but I'm going to ask her now to introduce herself to you. Tell us, Sasha, who is Sasha Sanchez?
Okay, great. Well, I'll start off by saying that I was born in Trinidad and Tobago. I am 100% Trini, 100% Caribbean baby. Hi, Rhonda. I'm seeing your comments. Continue to comment as we go through the conversation. So I am a mom of two. I think that's my full-time role. I always say that's my number one role. That's my full-time role. I'm also an HR professional, full-time HR manager, and I'm also the founder of a company called Success Profiling. It's a coaching and online training company that I'm really excited about. So I have been living in the island of Barbados over the last 3 to 4 years. So I have been working in Barbados, but I have Trinidadian roots, of course. I come from a family in Trinidad. I'm the third of six siblings, Desiree. I am the third, and my dad, he had been an educator and a principal for about 30 years. And so I grew up under his leadership, looking at him teach, looking at him impact others, looking at him teach in our home, because he had, lessons in the afternoon period. He had a full-time job in teaching. And my mom, she was a full-time mom and also an entrepreneur. And she was a risk taker. So I had a combination both of an entrepreneur and an educator. And when I reflect on who I am, that is who I am. And I'm an entrepreneur. I'm also a full-time educator. I love educating. I love teaching. I love coaching. It's a passion of mine. But I love doing it from a very authentic place. I love being transparent with my story and being able to encourage and inspire others. Because theories can be one thing. We went to school and we did a degree and we understand it from the theoretical point of view, but actual real life experience is a whole different kettle of fish, like my dad says. So it's understanding, how can you learn from my story? How can I teach from my story? How can I inspire from my story? So that's who I am. I have two beautiful children. I have a son that's 7 years old and a daughter that's 5 years old. They are my heart, my joy, my pride. So that's who I am.
Okay, great. And I'm sure that we have persons who are listening that can relate to you, a working mom, even some persons that are born in one
Yes.
country, but are, living in another country, but in their hearts, they're still in their country. And us Caribbean people, that's how we are. I have friends who live in the United States who are Jamaicans, and they talk about Jamaica all the time. So I understand that passion about your country. As you know, we're kinfolk when it comes to human resource management. But before we get into that, I want you to tell us a little bit about um, what in your childhood inspired you to be who you are today? What are some of the things that you went through as a child or you learned as a child that has informed your life today?
All right, I will share two distinct memories that I had growing up as a child and into my teenage years, just to give you an insight of who I am. I remember I was about 11 or 12, and I was getting ready to sit common entrance examinations. And I remember that I was preparing myself, and being the third of six, I felt like I wasn't smart enough. I wasn't as smart as my siblings. Whereas my sisters used to score extremely high in their essays and in their mathematics and in their English, and they would have passed for prestigious schools. I felt as though I didn't have what it took to really excel at common entrance. And I felt as though I was a child. I was really caught up in my thoughts. So a lot of the time, I remember sitting in a parent-teacher meeting and overhearing the teacher and my dad talking to each other. And I was sitting there pretending, how we children, we pretend we're not listening, Desiree, but we are listening. We are listening to everything that's happening.
Mhm.
And I was sitting there listening to the conversation. And Miss Raghunanan told him, if a fly passes, Sasha will see the fly. If somebody passes on the corridor, Sasha will see them because Sasha is so distracted. She cannot focus on her work, and I do not think she's going to do well in this exam. And so my dad listened, and he took in her information and her feedback. And so whilst I applied myself to the marks at that point in time, when I got my results, I was very disappointed, Desiree, because I had not passed the school that I wanted to pass to. When I measured up and compared myself to my siblings, I didn't pass to anywhere. I passed to something called a 3-year school. And I wanted to go to a 7-year school, which is a little more prestigious. And so my dad, in his wisdom, said, you're going to repeat this exam. I am going to send you back, and you're going to apply yourself a little more, and you're going to do over this examination. And I remember having to go back into primary school because it would have been embarrassing to me because I'm going back into a class with everybody else who would have been in a lower standard than I was in. And I had to reorient myself to a new teacher, to a new class, to new students. But Daddy ensured that I had a different kind of lessons. And he ensured that I was there 24/7 applying myself. And he gave more time to me. And I come from a big family, so you know how it is when it comes to sharing time across a lot of siblings.
Mhm.
And so when I passed the common entrance examination the second time, I passed for a prestigious school. I passed for St. Francis Girls College. I was so ecstatic. I was so excited just to be able to pass for that school. I even remember the uniform, the smell of the uniform when I got the uniforms. And that's the first memory I remembered when I was a child at that examination stage. And so I felt proud of myself. I knew that the capacity for me to do well was there. I just needed to untap it. The
Mhm.
second thing, the second moment or the experience that I had was, I think I was in about Form 3. And I remember getting my end of term report. Now, Desrine, I was so caught up in Friends. I was so caught up in the social side of school that I didn't really apply myself to the academic side. Because being the third of six, sometimes it could feel invisible. Sometimes it could feel as though nobody's really seeing you. So when you
Mhm.
got into your space in school, you wanted to play yourself a little bit. You wanted to get out there. You wanted to make friends. You wanted to understand what's happening on the taxi stand. So I was that person, right? I wanted to understand all the social things that was happening all around me, and I didn't really focus on the academic side. And so I remember getting my report book, Desrine, and I was so excited. And when I looked down at the scores in my report book when my teacher handed it to me, I saw 14% in French and 25 and 45% in mathematics, right? And I remember saying to myself, oh God, Father in heaven, how is I showing Daddy this report book? So I went home and I put the report book as far as I could have. I hid it away. And in my house where I grew up, the last day until when I get home, Daddy was sitting out in the porch or in the living room, and he would say, guys, bring the report books for me, let me see. And he would have a line of us, and we would give him the report book, and he would take the report book, go through the report book, right, Desiree? And so as he started to go through, everybody got reviews, everybody was doing well and stuff. But I knew I had hidden my report book. So when he called for me, I was somewhere far. They couldn't find me. So they had to go and call me for Daddy. When they called me, Desiree, and I brought the report book for him, he said, he just looked down at it and I could see the disappointment in his face. And then he said to me, 14% in French, Sasha? 14? Nah. I think I will take you out of school and send you to learn a trade. And Desrine, I would never forget how I felt. I felt a tightness in my chest. I felt as though I couldn't swallow. And I looked at my mom, because she was there at the time, and I said, Mommy, is he serious? And she said, well, I don't know, because you're not applying yourself in school, so it might make sense for us to use the money to send you to learn a trade. What you want to learn? Hairdressing? What you want to learn? And as the reality started to set in, Desiree, I started to ask myself some hard questions. Like, why wasn't I applying myself? What about the work that I didn't feel engaged with? Why wasn't I enough to be able to handle the work that was coming at me? And I left that day, that conversation, and I set it in my mind and made a decision that I would start to apply myself to the work, because I really felt as though I didn't apply myself, that I was focused on everything else. And I remember sitting in my bedroom and putting my hands over my ears and reading aloud my POA and POB book. And I was reading aloud because I was so distracted. I think I probably had ADD or something. I was so distracted from other influences, whether it be friends, TV, that influenced me in a different direction. And so to be able to zone out, I used to put my hands over my ear and read it aloud until I understood the work. And so when I got to the stage of completing my CXCs, I remember when I looked at the slip, I couldn't believe it, Desiree. I got 5 ones and 2 twos in my results. I was so ecstatic. I remember leaving my school in Belmont and getting down to Port of Spain. And at that time, we had payphones. So I remember picking up a payphone and dialing my dad's number at his office in his work and calling him and saying, Daddy, I got 5 ones and 2 twos. And he says, what? No. Don't make joke for me. No. And he couldn't believe it. He said, I have to see this slip. But if this is true, then I'm so proud of you. Great job. And at that time in my life, again, I got a reinforcement that I had what it takes inside of me to get to that place of success.
Absolutely.
And so when I remember my childhood, I remember that that lesson of having faith in your ability to work hard, your ability to have a work ethic that goes beyond, not necessarily in being average or being intelligent or being special, but having faith in your ability to apply yourself and to do the necessary and take the discipline and to take the consistency and to put it into your work so that you can generate the degree of success that you want. Yeah?
Yes. And as you were speaking, there are some things that was coming to mind for me. One of them is the importance of good parents. Parents who takes an interest in their children's education and listening to them and making good decisions. I think that decision to have you repeat, whether you liked it or not, was good. I also like the fact that you listen to your parents, and there may be parents that are on here now that are having issues with their children, and you just taught them maybe the type of conversations that they need to have. And
Yes,
so parenting is one of the most powerful things. It has been one of the most powerful things in my life, where
yeah,
my mother in particular had this thing that you either get a trade or education, but you're going to come out to something, right? You're going to do
yes,
something. And so
yes,
I want to say to even students who may listen to this, and if you're struggling, Sasha started to concentrate. She started to realizing that it's not just about my friends. It's good to want to, be out there, but what about the future? So Sasha, then let's get into now ambition. Having passed those
yes,
CSP subjects now, what were you thinking about in terms of where did you go? Where did you want to go from there? What was in your mind for the future, a career,
right.
for example?
Yes, yes. Now, I've always been passionate about people. I've always been passionate about helping other people. And my nature, I've always found when I've examined my heart and myself, I've always found that I had a passion to interact with people and a passion to understand people from a perspective of getting to see who they are. And so I went to university, and I would say that economics liked me. I didn't like economics. And so, because economics liked me, I started to get good grades in economics. And so, I pursued a degree in economics. But I also found a love, I would say a side love on the other side called psychology. And I started to do both of them. So, while I extremely excelled in psychology with all A's, on my economics, I was struggling a bit. Was more analytical and things and concepts that I didn't really, I understood it, but I wasn't really passionate about it. So when I completed my degree, I went into the world of work, and I have a little story to share about getting into an interview. When I completed my degree, and I did my degree in economics and psychology, and everybody would say, Sasha, why are you doing economics on one side, and what's your relation? And I didn't see the relation at the time, but right now I'm in banking and I'm in HR, so it's correlated. So at the point in time when I completed my degree, I started to look for a job, and I started to search on the newspaper, on the internet for a job. But in Trinidad, it's extremely difficult because of the number of people that graduate from UWI each year. And so I sent out hundreds of resumes, and I remember getting a call from a telecommunications company, and I was so excited because it was my first interview. And as I got into the interview and I sat down, I remember dressing in my black and white suit, and I remember the panel. I was very intimidated by the panel because it was, seasoned professionals sitting across from me. And as I started to talk through the interview, I was very scared. My hands were shaking. At the end of the interview, he looked up over his glasses and he said, Miss Sanchez, thank you for coming to the interview, but you are not a fit for the role here. You are overqualified for this job. Now, Desrine, I didn't have any experience, so I was confused. How could I be how could I be overqualified with no experience? So I left that interview feeling very confused and very lost. Lost because I felt as though there was nobody to navigate and help me through the process of becoming a professional. There was nobody to guide me and coach me and show me, okay, this is how you have to be, what you have to become. This is the skills you need to develop to be a solid professional. And so I remember leaving that interview, and I got down into Frederick Street in Port of Spain, and I started to cry because I was so frustrated. And I said to myself, I am going to do what it takes to build myself up, to become a professional that gives value to other people, who helps other people, who shows other people the ropes so that they know exactly what they need to do to be a successful professional. And so I got my foot into an HR department, an admin role. I started off as an admin, and I was able to move 6 levels. I was able to get through an HR assistant, an HR officer. I moved across to another industry, and I went from an HR officer to an assistant manager, and then to another manager in learning and performance. And I'm now the head of department as HR manager here in Barbados. So I've had a lot of movement in my career, and I attribute it to a growth mindset, having that mindset where you're always learning, having that mindset where you're always being, you always want to be the better you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And thank you for that because what it shows sometimes is the journey to becoming who we really want to be, is the journey towards purpose and passion. And sometimes it is a straight journey, but sometimes it's going to involve disappointments. Sometimes it's going to involve learnings that we didn't know we needed. But had you not have that encounter where you were overqualified, you would not have, understood maybe where you needed to start. And so I
Yes.
want to ask you now about HR. That is our passion. What are some of the joys that you have had as an HR person? And what are some of the challenges and how did you overcome them, or are you still working on them?
Yes. As an HR professional, I love working with people, and there are parts of the job that I absolutely love, and parts of it that I don't love so much. Like everything else in life, we have to be able to maintain a positive mindset and to be grateful for the opportunities that we have.
Hmm.
So for me, being able to influence through talent development has been one of my passions. Being able to get into the training room, being able to encourage others. From the talent acquisition point of view, I love being able to get into an interview with a talented professional, and to be able to glean talent and be able to select people. And then I love to see them move through the layers in the organization. I love even in banking, getting somebody in through the door as an intern and being able to see them get to the point where they move into different roles. That's extremely liberating for me as a professional. I particularly like mindset coaching, and that's what I do in success profiling, which we'll talk about later.
Hmm.
But being
Hmm.
able to influence others through training
Hmm.
and through teaching things to them, concepts to them that will help them, communication skills, how to work as a part of a team, how to build a successful brand, how to interview for a job. So those are the things that I really love interacting with and creating value in the lives of the people that I work with.
Yeah, before you go
One
on to
challenge I would say though,
okay, before you go on to the challenge, that is so important because one of our passion, or the things that we share, is leadership and people development. And it is good to hear that someone think just like me. It's not enough to get someone through the door, but it's also to
yes,
enable that person to grow and develop. That is
yes,
part of our legacy as leaders. And if we really love people, and if
yes,
we're really HR professionals, we
yes,
must be involved in the growth and development of people. We must be having those conversations with them to talk about
yes,
their goals, their dreams,
yes,
and their aspirations. Not because they
yes,
came in as an intern, means that they're going to be doing that forever, or they're going to be doing what they came in doing. They may have something else that they
yes.
want to do. So thank you so much for sharing that. So go ahead now and share the challenges.
But one of the challenges I've realized, and not just, I think it's a challenge of our society generally, because our homes and our organizations, they're made up of people that is in the Caribbean, people who are part of our society and our community. And one of the things that I've realized that we have is persons with a victim mindset, or a mindset that of entitlement, or mindset of negativity, and not taking full responsibility for their life and for their career and for where they're headed, but looking at the employer or looking at somebody else and holding that person accountable for their journey. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So that has
It's
been a challenge.
it's that part where the development side of HR, and to get the leaders involved in that side, because it cannot be left just to the HR professional to do that.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So when you talk about things like a performance improvement plan, you have some leaders who are not willing to go through that kind of pain, but it is necessary. And as a HR leader, you need
Yes.
their support in order to do that. As we're here, and if there is someone that
Great. I
is
agree.
viewing, yeah, is viewing or listening right now, and they want to have a career in HR, what advice would you give them? What advice would you give them about how to approach a HR career? And I'll tell you, one person told me once that, oh, HR is easy. You know, it doesn't involve numbers, so I want to do it. So I want you to talk a little bit about encourage somebody or share, you know, what does it take to be successful at HR?
Yes. Um, well, from my perspective, being in HR means that you have to have an interest in other people. I will call it caring. Because I find that in my journey, I've seen persons come into HR, not necessarily at my current employer, but generally, and they don't necessarily have a heart for people. And the thing about that is that it shows, because it is something that is authenticity shows. Every human being can smell and can see or in somebody who's not authentic. And so if you want to be in a field of HR and you come in and you are treating people issues in a very hard and fast way, and it's a way that's very robotic, then it's going to show. And so I've seen that a lot of persons come into HR, they can have an HR degree, they can have be very intelligent, but there's not a people focus. So in
Mhm.
dealing with people issues, per se, issues where maybe a loved one died, or maybe something is happening with the employee, and they have to meet with the employee, they can come across very crass and come across very hard and fast. And so having a career in HR, if you want to be an exceptional HR professional, the bias here in terms of standard, because everybody always have something about HR. Somebody always have a complaint, and imagine HR do this, and imagine HR did that, and my HR this way. So the bar is very high for HR. So if you don't have a heart for people, then I would say, you know, HR may not be the best place for you. But if you do have a heart for people, then you can learn the technical things. I would encourage persons to get into an HR department where they can learn the technical, basic level HR things, build relationships. I cannot over shout how important building relationships in HR is. You have to have a knack for talking to people, for building rapport, for understanding who they are, because you will not be able to influence anybody if you stay in a corner and you cannot collaborate and you cannot interact and have relationships with people. So I think those things are important. The other things I see, the skills can be learned. I believe, just from my example, from my story, I believe the technical parts of HR can be learned. The experience will build over time. I think the most important thing is your heart. It's where you are as a person. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, I 100% agree. And I just want to pull some words out of it. Is that ability to show empathy? Is that
Yes.
ability to listen? Is that
Yes.
ability to really put yourself in your employee's shoes at times?
Yes. Yes.
Even
Yes.
when,
Yes.
even when they're not telling us the truth, there's a reason because they're fearful of something. And it is how we respond to get that out of them. And
Yes.
I think that to be in HR, we have that ability or that opportunity to really impact people's lives. And if you're not interested in impacting people's lives, it is not the career for you. Because when people learn to trust you as an HR professional, they ask you to help them with just about everything, every
That's right.
decisions they're making about their children. Because what comes to work is a whole person, not just an employee.
Yes.
If it's a wife
Yes.
or a partner or a mother or a father or somebody who's paying rent versus mortgage, somebody who's going to school, it's the whole person.
Yes.
And so we need to
Yes.
strut, we need to understand how to relate to them
Yes.
in every aspect of their lives. Thank you so much for that. So
Yes.
I want to talk now about, maybe personal challenges, Sasha, apart from the career side. Is there any challenges that you have faced as you are growing as a professional? Whether it's personal challenges that you have to shake off that you would like to share. What keeps you going and growing even through those challenges?
Right. I love the fact that you just opened up to the personal side, because I've been talking really about my academics and my accomplishments and all of these things. And the personal is very important for you all to understand who I am. So a couple of years ago, I would say around 4 or 5 years ago, I got married. And I went through a couple years being married and the relationship didn't work out. It became very unhealthy. And having to go through an unhealthy relationship where there was some degree of, abuse for me, on my part and on the other person's part as well. It got us to a state of feeling as though we were in an unhealthy relationship. And so we needed to make a decision whether or not the relationship would continue or not. That was one of the toughest decisions that I had to make, Desrine, because I have two beautiful children. And I grew up in a culture that taught you, by example, that you had to stick with it no matter what. And that you had to go through hell and come back in a handbasket if you needed to, just to say that you had how much of a years of marriage. And so I had to have, when I realized that my life was going on a trajectory that I didn't like, and I was becoming a person that I didn't know, and I looked myself in the mirror, I said to myself, I need to make a change. And that the toxicity of the interaction and relationship, I couldn't allow it to continue if I had to survive. And so I had to make a tough call, separate and then to get divorced. I remember feeling as though I was starting over again. I felt as though I didn't know if anybody would accept me. I wondered what everybody else would think. I felt as though on one side I had a blank slate of paper that I could write a whole new story. And on the other side, I could have chosen to continue to remember the tough situations that I had been in, tough moments, and I could have regurgitated and rehearsed it over and over, and it could have kept me stuck.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point in my life, Sarah was, I think she was just over a year. She was in my hand when I left. My son was about 4 years old, 3 or 4, and they were babies. And for me, I have not regretted decision. I have chose for that decision to put a line in the sand in my life and to create a new person. So the person that is sitting in front of you is not the person that existed 3 or 4 years ago. That person didn't have an idea of where she was going in her life. That person didn't understand the importance of setting success markers and being clear with goals and understanding what you're defining yourself as.
Oh, excellent. And we grow through tough situations. We develop. Sasha, are you there? Or is it mine?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
I
yes.
am.
Okay, great. We develop persistence and resilience in tough situations. And what I
Yes.
like, as you started telling that story, is how you took responsibility for your part in the whole thing. You didn't say it was just on the other side, but you
Yeah.
say my side. And I think that is so instructive and that is so refreshing because usually when you hear the story, it's all just one-sided. So thank you so much for being vulnerable and for sharing that because somebody is listening who needs to hear this. Somebody is
Yes.
listening who needs to learn from this. All right, so let's talk now about your baby, your new baby. Success profiling. I like the ethos of it. I want to hear more about it. I want you to tell our audience about it because I believe in what you're doing. I am being inspired by you on a daily basis. And I think that you have something special to offer. So take some time now to take us through that.
Yes, I'm excited about success profiling. It's a dream come true. I mean, just the title of what we are talking about today, from passion to purpose. I
Mm-hmm.
believe ever since I was a child, I looked up to my dad, being an educator, and the passion that he had when he spoke, and the passion that he had when he influenced people, and he was able to, share knowledge and insights. That for me, kind of was the foundation of who I am in terms of success profiling.
Mm-hmm.
Success profiling is a company that I founded that focuses on adding value into the lives of people through coaching and through training. It helps persons, entrepreneurs, persons who are thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, persons who are professionals, persons who want to develop a success mindset what I do is I take you through a curriculum of training and coaching where we go through how do you develop the mindset, how you develop the skills, how do you develop the skill set and the attitude and all of the habits to get you from where you are to the next level in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So success profiling started last year during the pandemic. As the pandemic broke out, I decided that it was time for me to start to map out my course in terms of the company. And I've started off, I have clients, Desrine, I work with persons one-on-one. I also do online training. I am ecstatic about it. I see it adding value. Even on social media, you would see me sharing messages of hope, messages of inspiration, sharing my story on Instagram, because I believe in giving freely. I believe in sharing who I am. I believe in all of the knowledge that I've gotten, all of the books I've read, all of the things I've done, the courses. I want to give it away to persons so that they avoid the mistakes that I made. They can have a step up in their life because of my story, because of my lessons learned. And that is what success profiling is about.
Yeah, I just love the concept because I think coaching is one of the best ways. There are people who have done classroom training. They have done a degree, they have done a PhD, even at that level, but still encounter difficulty with interpersonal relationships,
Yes.
difficulty even building relationships,
Yes.
difficulty communicating when they get into leadership and realize that they need to inspire people to have meaningful conversations with people. They struggle there. So if you're talking to someone today who is having a difficulty, building relationships, what would you say to that person?
Mm. The first thing that with relationships is to understand ourselves. Now, sometimes we try to project out, but there is authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we try to build relationships, but relationships don't work out. So when I'm dealing with clients who feel as though they're not doing well in building relationships, or they may be struggling in that area, I would say, okay, let's take a look inside first, because a lot of the times professionals may struggle to be self-aware. Now I have a story of someone, a professional that I was working with, and they had in their mind how much impact they were making on the organization, and they felt as though, oh my God, I'm a great leader, and people love me, and they are so interested in me, and they encourage me, and they push me, and they want me to win. And so when that person at the time, and I did a walkthrough, the staff said, but she don't really talk to us. We don't really know her. And it was a marked lesson for me, Desiree, because it showed me a lesson in being self-aware. That if you are not honest and truthful with who you are on the inside, and you work on those things on the inside, it is impossible for it to be projected outside in a very positive way. And you can't fake it. You can't fake it. People can listen to you, they can see your engagement, they can feel your energy, they can feel your relationship, and they know whether you are supportive of them, they know whether you are interested in them, they know whether you care. And so sometimes you have leaders who get into roles and they think dealing with people is easy. I will just let them know what they have to do. I will just tell them, I will just instruct them. I'm the manager. And so when they get into those relationships, they realize, wait, I'm not making an influence. They start talking about me by the water cooler. Nobody wants to do the work. And they start realizing that this thing is more than being an HR person or being a leader. Is more than just getting the work done. It's about engagement. It's about getting to understand the people.
Absolutely. And as you were talking about the leader's perception of herself versus what the employees were thinking, that's one of the reasons why I like the different assessments, such as a 360 assessment.
Yes.
My impression of myself is one thing, and
Yes.
people fake it sometimes. They say, I fake it to make it. I don't want to annoy you. But when they
Yes.
are anonymous, that's the time they tell you the truth. So
It's
I
true.
encourage leaders also to do those assessments, and when you get the truth, you accept it, and you believe it, and you work on it. Sasha,
Yes.
what have you had to work on as a leader? What aspect of your personality or your leadership have you had to work on? I will share one of mine when you're finished. Hello?
Yes, we're back.
Okay. Did you hear my question?
Yes, you asked me what part of my leadership I had to work on. I think it is, I would have had to work when I started off as a supervisor. I used to give a lot of instructions
Mhm.
without taking the time to talk through what needed to be done. And so I would communicate in a way that was very top down. And one of my staff members came to me and she was a brave soul because I thank her for giving me the feedback. Um, she told me, she said, in terms of the communication and in terms of you giving instructions, I don't feel like if I feel like it's just coming at me without you explaining fully or engaging me. And so, Desrine, I had to take a pull back and observe myself. And becoming an observer of yourself is so important as a leader, is something that helps you grow. When you're able to step back, step out, not take it personally, and just look at yourself, observe yourself, and see if there's any merit whatsoever in what the person is saying. And most times there is merit in what they're saying. Because like my father used to say, 40 Frenchmen can be wrong, right? If you hear the same message over and over and over, it has to, there must be some truth in the message. And so taking the message on and going in and doing the introspection I had to do. And I love feedback. I love, even though it's uncomfortable, I love feedback because it helps me grow. And I had to really decide, okay, how am I going to engage my staff differently? How am I going to speak to them? How am I going to make them feel valued? Even when when I need work done, I need something to support me. So that was one of the areas I had to work on.
Excellent, excellent. And for me, it was listening actively, you know,
Mhm.
just pausing and putting everything away and listen carefully even to what is not being said so that I'm
Yes,
able to give the right advice. And after a while, I recognized that it became a positive trait to really sit and listen to someone and let them see that you put the laptop down and
yes,
you are looking at them. And it was because someone said to me, "You're actually, I think you're listening, but I'm not sure." And it kind of jolted me. I was listening, but the
yeah,
fact, the perception of the person that was that they were not sure. So I was multitasking. You take on this thing, I can multitask. So it's extremely important also to listen. And it was feedback that was immediate feedback that caused me to put everything away. And then from then on, I started practicing that. And it came from an employee, you know. So that is critical. Somebody had a question. It came across the screen, and I don't know if Sean could bring it back up for us. It says, "How do we grow in the organization and reach at the stage we want to be?" That's one. What if your HR manager fails to see your potential? What do you do? And three, how do you as an HR manager motivate employees? Wow.
right. That's lovely questions. So first and foremost, your growth in an organization is you really your responsibility. So the first thing I would tell you is to take full ownership. Take full ownership of your career path. Take full responsibility of where you're headed. It is nobody else's responsibility, not your organization, not your parents, not your friends, not anybody, to decide where you want to go, right? So once you know, and I've done career plans with persons, with employees, once you know where you want to go, you are able to chart your way through the organization, right? And be clear with what you want to do in terms of the experience you need in that organization to get there. If the experience don't exist within the organization, I'm very real with persons. I let them know that it may be possible for you to go outside and get this experience and then maybe back in a higher role. So that's one way. One thing I would say, firstly, in terms of taking ownership of your career path. The next thing I would say is that you have to know as a person and as an employee that you are paid for your value. so that when you come into a role, you are paid based on the value that you bring. And that's why in HR, a CEO is paid one rate, and entry level teller or entry level admin is paid a different rate based on value. So as you work on increasing your value and showing management your value, you're able to stand out, because that's a mindset that a lot of people don't have. And when you are able to show that you are adding value, maybe with the customer, it might be in with your work, with your number one customer, which is your manager, and you're able to show the work and the value of your work over and over and over again, that causes you to stand out. Now, what if your HR manager doesn't see it? I would say the responsibility is on, because we can't say, we have no control over what an HR manager on the other side will do or what your manager would do. You have to take full responsibility of your career plan. And so as you grow in the area of your technical expertise, continue to have a growth mindset, continue to educate yourself, whether it's self-education or it's a formal degree or a formal master's program. You pursue that part of you. And then you build up your behavioral skills, your soft skills on the other side. And so an opportunity will come, an opportunity will knock on the door for you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Sasha. And I please keep that question on the screen. I would also add, you made a valid point. Your development is your responsibility. Where you go with your career is your responsibility. It is, but it's also very, very true that you have leaders who do not recognize your worth. And I've had to tell persons that you probably need to find an organization where the
Yes.
culture of growth is there. I wrote something, I think, on this morning about professional development. But there are leaders who just got a piece of paper. They did not learn anything. They swat and they passed. So you're asking them to do something that they are not able to do. So sometimes you have to make that difficult
Yeah.
decision. You love the organization, but what about you? If you are not progressing, maybe that
Yeah.
is not the field for you. And sometimes you have to make those very, very difficult decisions. This
Yes.
one said, oh, the question is gone. I'm so sorry. I saw it. How do you maintain your mental health in a toxic work environment? Ooh, that's a
Wow. Yes. Now, just coming off again, I want to reinforce that you have to take care of yourself. It is your responsibility to take care of yourself. So if you find yourself in a toxic work environment, I know it's COVID time, I know it's difficult to find a job, but you have to get your brain in a space, or your mind in a space where you start thinking, what is my way out of this organization? Because this environment, I have no way, no how I can influence a toxic environment, especially if you have toxic people at different levels. So you need to decide first and foremost, I am in the driver's seat of my life, I am in control, and I am going to have a plan. And you wake up every day, Bradley, and you work towards that plan. So there are a number of different things that you can do to maintain mental health, and that is create an environment of inspiration for you. For me, I had to develop a habit of inspiration. When I wake up in the morning, what's my morning routine like? What do I listen to? What are the people around me in the department saying? Who do I collaborate with? Who do I speak to? Whose voices is in my ear? Those are the things that really impact on your mental health. So it's building in a routine, things in your routine, whether it be exercise, whether it be journaling, whether it be taking a walk, whether it be collaborating with other persons within this space that have a growth mindset also, whether it's pursuing things at the side that will give you the mental peace that you need to be able to survive in that toxic environment until you break the barrier and you are able to step out into a new area or a new career. Yeah.
Yeah. It's actually similar to what I just spoke about. If you're working with someone that has no interest in you, absolutely none, because one of the things that we
Yes.
spoke about, and I think we probably didn't make it very clear, everyone who has somebody reporting to them is a HR leader. You are
Yes.
leading a human resource. And so, yes, there is a department and a head that is called HR, but every single supervisor has a HR role. And if the HR is inept, which sometimes is, you can't go there, so you have no advocate, right? And then you realize that all around, everybody follows the same pattern. You have to work
Yes.
on getting yourself out of that environment. One of the ways to do so is to have a plan B. We always need to have a plan B. um, as I said before, you may love the organization, but if it's affecting and first of all, in my opinion, when your mental health is affected, sooner or later, your physical health is going to be in trouble,
Correct.
right? So you have to think about that. What is your plan B? What are you supposed to be doing? It follows through on what we're talking about, that your development is your responsibility. Your growth is also your responsibility. What you do with your talent is also your
Yes.
responsibility. So
Your
start thinking about that
responsibility.
along with what Sasha spoke about, find other outlets, inspiration. Until you get out, you have to find a way to cope in that environment.
Yes.
How do you stay
Yes.
motivated? Okay, that's the
Yes.
same. Oh, how do you stay motivated in the workplace when all around you is
All
negativity?
around you is negative. Oh, I love this question, Desrine. I love it. So I'm going to start first, okay?
Yes.
Um, when you look at life and you look at the current of life, seems to be a negative current. Now, we know that good overcomes evil and that positivity overcomes negativity. But there's a constant flow of negativity that will come into your space. Negative media, negative thoughts, negative magazine, negative people. Oh my God, negative people, guys. There's so many negative people. And so you have to make a decision to take responsibility for the people that is around you, the things that you listen to, the things that you let into your space. It's a choice that you're making. You haven't and some people have just given away the choice and say, well, I'll listen to anything on the radio, I'll listen to anybody who sends me any article, I'll read anything. And that is the problem with negativity. You realize that you are responsible for your mental health, you start creating a circle of influence around you if you want to be successful, if you want to have positivity in your life. And so, what I have done, I can speak from my experience, is that I have turned down the mic and the volume on those things that are very negative, and I have turned up the volume on the things that are very positive. So, in terms of reading, what are you reading? What books are you reading? What podcasts are you listening to? What shows like this are you listening to? What are you partaking in? The top five people that you surround yourself with, your friends. What is the conversation? Is it enriching your life? Is it bringing growth to you? Is it inspiring you? Is it bringing you to a better version of yourself? And these are the tough questions we have to ask ourselves if we want to get into a life of positivity. Because positivity will overcome the negativity. But the problem is that we allow the negativity to go along without an injection of positivity into it. Yeah?
Absolutely. And there is this saying that says 10% is what happens, 90% is how you respond or react to it. Um,
Yes.
when I'm faced with that kind of environment, the first thing I think about, what can I do to change it? So, can I, the person, whether you are a low level employee or a leader, whatever capacity that person is in, can you change it? And if you can, how do you go about changing it? Who will be your ally? Who do you
Yes.
speak to start a
Yes.
movement? I always say Rosa Parks refused to get up and now everybody is sitting down. It's not always, we will not always advise you to leave. We are
Yes.
going to say to you, what are you going to do? So if everybody comes in the morning and say, morning, 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 or if everybody, what do you come in and say, good morning, right? That is projecting something different. So you be
Yes.
yourself. A lot of times people catch a spark when they realize that yes, there's somebody that is resisting this, and there may be somebody that you can influence who just wanted a little light under their fire to get them going as well. And sooner or later, you find out that you, by the way that you react to what is around you, you have created or you start creating a different environment. And all of a sudden, you have allies who says, no, we have to get out of this. So I would say, think about how you can
That's right.
change it. But if you can't change it, as we're talking about the toxic, if it's really not just negative, but then it gets toxic, you've got to get out of it. You've got to get out of it.
Indeed.
We have just about 6 minutes left. Sasha, is there anything else you want to leave with our viewers and our listeners today?
Yeah, there are three things I want to do before we close. Three things that I have insight into and learned over my journey, over the lessons and the stories that I was talking to you all about before. And one thing I've learned is mindset is everything.
Hmm.
Mindset is everything. It is everything. Whether you succeed, whether you believe something or you don't believe it, it is true. Yeah, I think I lost you for a little bit there.
Yes.
So for me, understanding that the thought is what drives feelings, and then feelings drive actions, and then actions drive habits, and then habits become who you are. So you have to be aware of what is the thoughts, what is the recurring thoughts. Yeah, Dr. Daniel Amen. He is a psychiatrist and he scans brains for a living. He has a business called Amen Clinics in the US. And he speaks about something called ANTS, and it's called automatic negative thoughts. And what he says is that we have automatic negative thoughts. Thoughts come from the magazines, the media, the TV we watch, the shows, the music we listen to, the people around us. And so we have to get in a mode of observing ourselves and the thoughts that we have, because when we have those thoughts, they generate feelings, we act on those feelings, and then we create habits. And then we wonder, why is my life going this way? So
Yeah.
it's being open to your mindset and taking steps, getting a coach, getting training, aligning yourself with people who are going somewhere with their lives. The second one I want to talk about is intention, the power of intention. Guys, I cannot underline how important it is to have a plan for your life. I didn't have a plan for my life. I lived the first part of my life not having a plan. I end up depressed. I end up not motivated. I didn't feel like I was living up to my true potential. And so, if you feel as though there's an untapped potential in you, that there's more that you want to give, that you feel different, it is because you are different. And it's because you have more to give. And it's because there is something inside of you that wants more. So, it's setting out what are my success markers? And then the last thing is courage. Having the courage to still feel the emotion and act anyway. Having the courage to know that you can overcome it, that you can do the impossible. So those are the three things that I want to leave off before we close.
Yes. Thank you so much. The first one about that leads to habit, and you want to repeat that one slowly.
Right.
The
So
first one.
understanding the power of a thought. It all
Yes.
starts with a thought. I feel
Mhm.
like I need movie Inception right now. But once you have a thought in your mind, that thought generates a feeling. You
Mhm.
feel, if you have a bad thought, a negative thought, you feel certain ways. If you have a depressing thought, you feel certain ways. And when you have that feeling, we are creatures that act based on our feelings. We buy based on how we feel. So we do things based on how we feel. So when we get into a motion of taking action because of how we feel, those actions become repetitive and then they become habits. And when they become habits, your habits craft who you are. What you do, we are creatures of habit. And so once you have that habit in you and you do it over and over and over, you will wake up 10, 15, 20 years from now and you realize, I'm not where I want to be. I'm not who I want to be. So going back straight to the origin and understanding a thought is so powerful. You need to rewire the thoughts. There are ways to rewire thoughts. And I work with clients in terms of how do they rewire their thoughts, how do they get from negative thoughts into positive thoughts, how do they speak back to their thoughts. So it's very important.
Thank you. Thank you
Yes.
so much, Sasha. This has been a really inspiring and educational hour. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you so much for being real and vulnerable. I'm absolutely sure that there are people here who will listen even after, who's going to learn from you. That is what Conversations Live is all about. Is ordinary people like Sasha Sanchez telling her extraordinary story of how
Yes.
she discovered her passion, how she discovered her purpose, and how she has linked both of them and is impacting the lives of people on a daily basis through human resource, through training, through coaching, through development. I like the fact that, Sasha, you spoke about taking employees from they enter the organization and helping them as they progress through. It is the same thing, whether you're a teacher, is how you take a student and how you lead that student through. So thank you so much for being here. You have inspired us, you have shared with us, and we are so grateful. And so it's bye once more from another edition of Conversations Live. And next month, we will be earlier. I will be sending out the notification to let you know when else we'll be live, when we'll speak to another inspiring young lady who will share her story and help us to be more persistent, more resilient, and to grow, and maybe even to glow. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.